I'll earn a lot of money for the Apple family. All our dreams and our hopes from now until hereafter, all that we've been wishing for will happen at the gala of the royals. They will meet fair rarity.
Daniel Ingram is an all-over-the-map musician-composer who uses some of his musical talent to write theme songs and ditties for top-notch animation studios. It is my pleasure to welcome Daniel Ingram, animation composer of great renown and small renown, to Studio 4 to tell us more.
Thank you very much.
Well, so Matthew Good's kid, big fan.
Yeah, that's quite the honor. I notice with parents, every time I meet them, they say, "Oh, have I heard anything you've done before?" The first thing I ask is, "Well, do you have kids, and how old are they?" And if they're in that age range, then they've usually been exposed to something.
Sure. And what were you weaned on?
My favorite show was, I love Sesame Street, for sure.
Okay.
And Inspector Gadget was my favorite show as a kid, actually. I still remember that theme song. It
I'm
goes in my
sure
head.
you were after Mr. Rogers and the Tickle Trunk and all of that.
I kind of remember. No, I was exposed to reruns of Mr. Rogers, actually. Yeah.
Really? And did you have a favorite? Was Big Bird or Miss Piggy or any of them?
Yeah, the Muppets, for sure. My sister loved Miss Piggy. That was her icon, I think, growing up. She loved her strength.
Sure.
Yeah.
So how did you learn to do this?
Music for cartoons specifically? It kind of was a trajectory that just happened. And I'd always loved cartoons growing up. I actually wanted to be an animator when I was a kid, and I had my own little cartoon studio. I was 8 years old, and I called it Boogles Comics. And,
You did?
Yeah.
And how did you do it? Did you put it on little pieces of paper?
I did the flip books, definitely. And I also, the kids in school would come to me and say, "Can you draw a caricature of me?" And so I was convinced at that point I'm going to grow up and be a cartoonist. So I just loved cartoons growing up. I used to be late for high school, late for elementary school by staying in a little early to watch cartoons and whatnot.
How great. But you could also draw them.
I could draw, yeah. So then I got into music, and I started writing music for media, and I loved working with theater. I loved working with modern dance. That was kind of how I got my start, was actually working with ballet.
Okay.
And I thought, this whole interdisciplinary thing is very exciting. And suddenly cartoons came into the picture, and I thought, okay, this feels really good.
This all comes together.
Exactly.
Really. So when you say you got into music, piano lessons, lots of what kind of lessons?
What Matthew Good was saying is a little bit similar to my experience. My parents didn't come from a particularly musical family. And so I discovered music quite late. I was in high school, and I'd had a few music lessons as a kid, but I was too creative for my piano teacher. She was always like, "Stop improvising, stop being creative, learn how to read music and play Bach and whatnot." And that was great, but as your kid, sometimes you just want to express yourself or do your own thing. So I don't think my parents quite knew how to deal with that when I was young. Fortunately, when I became an early teen, I started playing guitar. It was like game on. I could do whatever I wanted to.
And did you take lessons, or you just self-taught?
I was self-taught initially. I did go to university for music, but I had to teach myself in order to get admitted to that.
Okay, and was there a teacher who inspired you greatly, or someone else?
I've had a mentor for many years who inspired me, and this was another senior animation composer in Vancouver, and he named Hal Beckett, and he was the one.
Hal Foxton Beckett.
Yes, you know him.
Yeah, I know of him.
He's quite
Don't
a legend.
Know him.
Locally.
He is a legend.
Yeah.
He's a veteran.
He's a veteran, and so an incredible man, and he kind of brought me in and saw some talent there, and was able to sort of bring me into that world.
Okay, so take me to your studio in Kitsilano.
Yes.
Still in Kitsilano.
Right across from the beach, which is perfect.
That's good. That's inspiring.
That's inspiring.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
So now you're in the studio, and you get a call from Hasbro, from someone.
Yes.
Was that the big break?
I think my first big break was Martha Speaks, actually.
Okay.
And that is WGBH. Now, it's a PBS show. And they also it was produced by the same people who do Curious George, which is such a great show,
great,
Arthur.
Yeah.
And they had this new series, an educational show, Martha Speaks, based on this popular series of books. And I had to compete. What usually will happen is they'll say, okay, we've got this little demo. You want to write something for it. And you do that on spec. And it can be anywhere from 3 to 10 composers doing the exact same thing. And so my big break was when I got that show, I guess, and that kind of got it rolling.
Martha Speaks. And so tell me how you do it. You have little animals around you, or You know,
I have a few
little
plush
pandas
toys.
and things, plush toys.
They send what happens with animation is, you know, they record the voices, they animate it, and then they send it with no music, of course, and they say, now we need a sound for this show. We need this to be distinctive.
Okay, so animation first.
Animation first, unless it's a song. But if it's just like the music in the background, it's always animation.
Okay, and do you get the storyline or anything? Do you get a sense of what it is, or is it strictly visual?
Well, I get a script, but also
Right.
I can just watch it without music. And then we have a discussion like, well, can you do something kind of new? We want kids to hear the show from the other room and be able to kind of go, oh, that's Martha Speaks, or that's My Little Pony, just from the sound of the music.
Right.
So you're trying to create a personality for that show.
And individual characters, like Rainbow Dash, or
Yeah, hey, you know your stuff.
I know a little bit, but that's
fact-
because I've read about it.
I brought this as a gift for you. This is Rainbow Dash, and
This is?
that's
I
Rainbow
just
Dash right
guessed.
there. Well, there you go.
See? I love
She's
swag.
my favorite pony. She's very cool.
She's very cool. Did you ever have a pony growing up?
No, I didn't have a My Little Pony. I had a Pound Puppy, but I didn't have a My Little Pony.
You had a Pound Puppy? Because
Yes.
there's another one you do called Pound Puppy.
I do that show now too, so it's just kind of ironic how that
So
happened.
tell me about My Little Pony, for somebody who hasn't seen all of My Little Pony.
It's a show that's had a long history, and each generation it gets kind of redone, rebooted. And so right now there's a new generation of My Little Pony. It's called Friendship, and it is just exploded. People from all age ranges are really excited about this show.
Well, I heard that. I heard that some of the audience is adult, like men, women. More men, more women, do you know, demographic-wise?
I think demographic-wise,
Psychographic-wise?
I know that from my, I guess, fan base that I get feedback from, it's probably 90% men, and it's probably in the age range from about 15 to 40. So that's a pretty big range, and that was a little unexpected, but these guys get really excited about animated shows, and somehow this show really appeals to their imagination, and so they're the most vocal about it.
Right, and it's not South Park. It's nothing like that. It's really for kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's intended for kind of girls aged, I guess, like 6 to 8, 6 to 9 in that range. Yeah.
No Barney Rubble in there or anything like that.
No.
No. So tell me how many you've done so far.
How many of that?
My Little Pony.
Oh, Martha Speaks, I did 80 episodes of that, or 70, I'm doing 10 this year, so it's 80. 80 half hours. I've done My Little Pony, I've done 2 seasons worth of songs, and that's about 30 songs on that show, including the theme song. Pound Puppies is a 52 episode contract.
And Pound Puppies is about?
Pound Puppies is an amazingly kind of warm show. And every episode, what happens is there's a group of puppies that live under this pound, and their job is to take a new puppy and find an owner. And they have this motto that says, for every pup, a perfect person. And so it's this like, how are they going to find this pup somebody, the right person? So they always, of course, go through various foibles.
Sure.
In order to reach that.
So a deeper message. In many cartoons, as you know, or animated film, there's always a message, whether you're two swimming fish or a shark or a Shrek.
These shows become more and more sophisticated because the producers realize you can't play down to these kids, and you also have an opportunity to help teach them some lessons, but also, or educate them.
Sure.
So with
In a
Martha's-
fun way. And
Exactly.
educate us too, because sometimes at 40, 50, 60, we still haven't learned the lessons.
Oh, I know. I'm always learning interesting things actually from these shows. But I know, like with Martha Speaks, I always introduce vocabulary, kind of like Sesame Street would, but they do it in a little bit more of a subtle way. It's really integrated into the plot line, so the kids aren't even realizing they're learning, but they're learning, and it's great.
Hal Foxton Beckett, who mentored you, who you apprenticed under, what did he tell you? What did you learn from him? A lot, I know, but you know how sometimes there's nuggets from someone, and when you get stuck or you're in the studio and you wish you were on the beach.
There's lots of nuggets from Hal. I remember one of my favorites. He just said, "Remember, no matter what happens, you never pass up a job and you never pass up a meal when you're a composer." I guess.
Probably. Well, you've been compared to that Charlie Sheen, 2.5 Men.
Well, that's
Jack, who writes the jingles.
right. Yeah.
Right?
When I meet people for the first time, and they say, "What do you do?" and I say, "Oh, I write music for kids' cartoons." That's the first thing they say. Is, "Oh, like Charlie on 2.5 Men," and I have to kind of figure out how to answer that.
I guess so. Well, you don't want to go where Charlie is.
Not right now, no.
No, maybe on 2.5 Men, a little bit better, a bit of a ladies' man, a bit of a something, all of that. But through all of these, what sings really 3+ is friendship is magic, friendship is important, not being a bully,
Yeah.
all of that. So how long does it take you? Do you turn yourself into the pony? How do you do it?
There's a very set schedule when you're working on television. And I would get a show like on a Monday, and I have to have the music written by the following Monday.
Really?
It's usually a week.
That's fast.
Yeah, and it's 20 minutes, and usually about 20 minutes of music can go into a show. So you got to really know how to crank it out.
And is this happening in LA, some here, some in New York? Where?
The animation that I've been working on tends to be produced like here, but the actual client, like the parent companies, tend to be in the States. Yeah.
So you do a lot of computer work, phone?
Yeah, these days the technology has been great because now we can, between Skype, we can plan the shows by having the people from LA with the people from Vancouver, myself in my studio. We can all get on there, watch it, share our screens, and go, okay, well, let's make this really funny here, or let's try to make this this is an important part. Let's see if we can make this a little bit emotional. And whatnot.
Sure.
Yeah.
Kung Fu Magoo?
Kung Fu Magoo. That was my only animated feature I've done so far. So that was a bit different because it was, instead of a 22-minute arc of story, now we're talking about 80, 90 minutes arc of story. But so that was cool, and Mr. Magoo is kind of an icon for my dad anyway.
Well,
He
yes,
loved that.
I watched Mr. Magoo.
Okay.
A little nearsighted, and it stuck forever. If you wore glasses, you were a Magoo.
Yeah.
Or a Mr. Magoo. So, what's the dream job for you in what you do? Who do you hope calls?
I think that I'm doing a lot of these bigger musical numbers. What you heard there on the preview before was quite a big musical number. It was about 4 minutes. It had a full choir. It had 6 soloists. It was very inspired by like the Disney musical tradition, Stephen Sondheim musical traditions, things like that. And I think that's been really exciting for me because that's a whole nother challenge, getting into that and pushing those limits. And those songs are what reach people the most. Like that's what they respond to the most. People don't really pay attention to the background music so much. So for me, a dream job would be in a feature film, writing big musical numbers, or maybe even just doing a whole musical.
Feature film with
Yeah,
real
like a
people,
Disney
with
film
humans,
or something. Yeah.
or animation.
I like
or
animation.
Do you matter? You like animation?
I think that would be, well, in animation, it's real humans singing, or a song for a Disney movie. That would be pretty.
With Brad Pitt and Gwyneth Paltrow in the studio.
They have to be singing.
Of course they would, because they're doing they're doing the voices, aren't they?
That would be pretty spectacular.
And where do you apply for that? Or do you do what you do well and hope the phone rings? How does the business work?
It is very much a business of who you know. And as your reputation grows, then more people you work with, they move on to other jobs, and next thing you know, they're working at Disney, or next thing you know, they're working at Pixar, and they would then say, hey, I know this guy. I worked with him a few years back. So most composers have a career where they're just building up those connections for many, many years.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so, until you do the Academy Award-winning film.
Yeah, exactly. If you win an Emmy or you get nominated for something big, then of course you get a little more exposure.
Well, sure. Well, you've won a Leo.
Yes.
That's a big start.
That was exciting.
And you're 36, so you have a few years.
A few more.
Let's hope.
I hope so.
God willing. How nice to meet you.
It's wonderful to meet you.
Thank you, and thank you for
Rainbow Dash.
Yeah, Rainbow Dash. I like is that the hair? That's the mane.
Every pony has its own kind of mane, and her mane is a rainbow mane, and she's
it's kind of like Cavella, the flying pony.
That's it.
Why not? Thank you.
Thank you.
Daniel Ingram.